Hey everyone. So I came to a bit of a realization today. Oh my God, you see, this is why I love pop culture, because you start to notice things that you didn't notice before. I was basically on an internet comment section and somebody brought up that obsession was an actual trait of borderline personality disorder. When I tell you that shit never occurred to me, because think about it. Think about the relationships of all people with borderline personality disorder. And think about how their relationships actually turn out. You do get those obsessive moments. You do get obsession. You do get like really intense and inappropriate feelings towards someone. You get all of that with borderline personality disorder. Like I just didn't twig that it was a part of the illness. So knowing that my obsession is part of my illness, knowing that my bouts of anger are a part of my illness, that they're not actually me, knowing that, feelings of abandonment, knowing that all of that is my illness and not actually me, it really begs the question, who the fuck am I without my borderline personality disorder? Like, who am I? And then on top of that, how do I kind of navigate that in the larger context of gangstalking? Imagine being in a position where you have borderline personality disorder. Let's go through the traits first of all. Before I even go into that, let's go into the traits of borderline personality disorder, right? Let's go into that real quick. So I've written down. So the first trait is fear of abandonment. The second is unstable and intense attachments. The third is identity disturbance, meaning you don't really know who you are. The fourth is impulsivity. The fifth is suicidal tendencies. The sixth is emotional instability. The seventh is chronically feeling empty. The eighth is inappropriate and intense bouts of anger. The ninth is dissociative symptoms. I have had all of those. And there are 4 types of BPD. There's high functioning, petulant, histrionic, aggressive, externalizing, and low functioning. I think I was somewhere in between 3 and 4 realistically, because I did a lot of self-destructive shit at the height of my illness. Now, looking at all that constructively, let's be clear. Plenty of people with borderline can either choose to disrespect themselves or not disrespect themselves. People with borderline can choose to hurt people or they can choose not to hurt people. Okay? I chose to hurt people and I chose to disrespect myself. So I can't turn around and say, well, the illness made me do it, because the thing is, the illness can control my emotions, but my emotions themselves don't control my actions. I still have the time to pause and think about what I'm about to do before I actually do it. So no, I'm not about to use my fucking illness in order to excuse anything that I might have done wrong. But then I'm in the very unique position. I forgot paranoia. Paranoia is also a trait. Yeah, paranoia is also a trait of paranoia and obsessive behavior. So that's 11 traits from BPD. And I realized that my illness, it does not give me the right to treat people a certain way, because, if you have an internal inner compass, and you usually like outside your feelings, like usually outside your illness, your feelings will tell you what your ethics and morals are. And for the longest time, because I didn't actually know I was sick, I let my morals and my ethics fall by the wayside in order to self-destruct. Now, again, I can't blame the illness for that. I can only blame myself. I can only take responsibility. But then when it comes to being a targeted individual, this is a special level of a fucked up situation, because You've got the fear of abandonment in a campaign that is knowingly decided to isolate you. You've got unstable and intense attachments, and it's not even you forming them, it's the people around you, because they're hired specifically to form these unhealthy attachments with you. So you've got identity disturbance because people keep gaslighting you about what's going on in order to play with your sanity. You've got impulsivity. That one, I don't know. Reactive abuse can play a part in that, but not always. Suicidal tendencies. The whole point of street theatre and gangstalking and gaslighting and acoustic weaponry and directed energy weaponry is is specifically designed to get you to self-destruct and kill yourself. And then on top of that, you've got emotional instability. Again, this program is specifically designed to unseat you emotionally and unbalance you emotionally. That's specifically what this community stalking thing is designed to do. 7, chronically feeling empty. Literally, in a gang stalking environment, everything that you fucking do is weaponized against you. So if there's anything that you particularly enjoy, the stalkers try to take that away from you or weaponize it or try to turn it into something that it isn't. So that you don't get any joy out of anything, so that you chronically feel empty. 8 is inappropriate and intense bouts of anger. But how is any of this intense or inappropriate when you're literally being slowly murdered every day? 9, dissociative symptoms. Is anybody surprised that in a situation like this, somebody would go into dissociative episodes? Really? And let's have a look at obsessive behavior. Again, this whole program is designed to have you fixated on it. And then there comes the paranoia. How difficult is it to navigate paranoia when literally every day you have reason to be? So being a TI in a situation, being a borderline personality disorder sufferer in a situation in which there is literally everything feeding your illness, not even feeding your illness, but justifying the traits of your illness. So basically, with everything that I'm going through with the borderline personality disorder, at every turn, there is either something or someone justifying the illness. So on top of going through the borderline personality disorder itself, I'm literally in an environment where all the borderline traits are justified because of people's actions. So imagine how difficult it is as somebody who genuinely does have this psychological injury, because let's be clear, trauma is what causes borderline personality disorder, sustained trauma. So imagine borderline personality disorder. Imagine how bad that shit gets. And then on top of that, you're having to deal with the situation specifically designed to bring that in you and to enhance your illness, if not synthesize it, because borderline personality disorder can be synthesized. It's trauma-based. Just like sociopathy, trauma-based. Just like narcissism, trauma-based for the most part. The only thing that isn't trauma-based is psychopathy. That's the only thing that's not trauma-based. Sure, you can change it, but it's not rooted in anything external. It just is what it is. So imagine having borderline personality disorder and being completely in a situation that is designed to not only aggravate that illness, but to justify all the fears, irrationality, and anger of that illness. That fucks with you in a special type of way. It's like this program, it does not allow you to be who you are outside borderline personality disorder. And when it comes to the classification of mental health, let's get into that real quick, okay? So, you've got addicts who are usually the more violent people of the piece. Addicts are usually more violent. They're not going to be guaranteed to be violent, but addicts let me see. There were lower ranking perps that fit the following profiles. They're narcissists, sociopaths, people with borderline personality disorder. Again, I've had multiple people obsessed over me. Addicts, and paranoid schizophrenics. Now let's look at each one closely. The addicts are usually the ones that are, that are usually willing to be violent at a moment's notice. Okay? They're usually willing to be violent at a moment's notice. It's not like that all the time, but when it gets particularly bad, they can get violent, and it doesn't matter towards who. It can be towards family members, it can be towards anybody. So addicts are the most likely people to get violent. And yet when TIs are dealt with by mental health system or mental health, they talk about how we potentially suffer from paranoid schizophrenia because we might be violent. But let's have a look at that really, really closely, because when it comes to paranoid schizophrenics, which are also the type of people that are hired to be perps, most of them aren't violent. Most paranoid schizophrenics are not violent. In fact, paranoid schizophrenics are more likely to have violence committed against them because of the stereotypes that come with being paranoid schizophrenic. So already, when mental health is dealing with TIs, they contradict themselves right away, because the thing is, violence is usually something, it's not restricted to addicts, but addicts are more likely to be violent than anyone else. More likely than paranoid schizophrenics, more likely than narcissists, even more likely than sociopaths, even more likely than people with borderline personality disorder. Addicts are at the top of the list in terms of risks of being violent. And then on top of that, go down the list, borderline personality disorder. Yeah, you can have irrational bouts of anger, but they're below addicts in terms of how angry somebody can actually get at the situation that they're in. They're below addicts. I've met people with borderline personality disorder before. All they've done is fucking yell. All they've done is yell. They don't throw hands. They don't say nothing to nobody. The only reason why I've thrown hands in my time is not because I actually wanted to do it or because I had the urge to do it. It's because at some point, if you want people to leave you alone, there has to be heavy consequences to what they're doing. That's the only thing they respond to. But borderline personality disorder people actually being violent, I'm not saying that borderline personality disorder people can't be capable of being violent. That wouldn't be true. I've witnessed one person with BPD being violent, right? So I'm not saying BPD people are incapable of being violent, but then bouts of anger is usually about shouting. It's usually about throwing tantrums. It's not usually about throwing hands on anybody, right? And then you go down the list with sociopaths. Now, you do get violent sociopaths, and sometimes the violence that sociopaths can actually inflict on people, addicts can be more violent, but sociopaths can be worse, if that makes sense, in terms of the damage that they can inflict on people when they're ready. And they have a conscience there, but it's weak. So that, their sociopathy takes over, their need to use people takes over, their love for the kill takes over. When it comes to narcissists can ruin people's lives, but it's always indirect. It's always about mind games, manipulation, and it's always about an inflated sense of self-esteem. It's never about actually knocking somebody's head off, and then you've got paranoid schizophrenics. Like I said before, out of everybody that I've met, paranoid schizophrenics are usually they are literally the least violent people I have ever met in terms of mental health issues. They're literally the least violent people I've ever met. So think about this logically. TIs are diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic because apparently, if you want to do any harm to yourself or others, then it's paranoid schizophrenic, on top of the so-called conspiracy theories, even though it's literally been proven for decades that directed energy weapons are being used. So, that on top of all the delusions, but it's bollocks, because the thing is, most paranoid schizophrenics are not fucking violent. They're not even suicidal for the most part. They're just not here. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, does that sound like a TI to you? Does that sound like a TI who knows about remote neural monitoring, and directed energy weaponry? Does it sound like somebody who knows about BAE systems and HAARP? Does it sound like somebody who knows about DARPA? Does it sound like somebody who knows these things about the way the world actually works? Does it actually sound like somebody with paranoid schizophrenia? Really and truly, does it really sound like somebody has a mental problem and they don't understand how the reality of the world? That sounds like bollocks to me. That sounds like absolute bollocks. There is no way you're going to be paranoid schizophrenia. You're going to have paranoid schizophrenia and be lucid enough to look up stuff to do with eugenics, stuff to do with directed energy weaponry, stuff to do with engineering. There's no way you're going to be paranoid schizophrenic and be lucid enough to understand any of these things. Because the way paranoid schizophrenics work is that 9 times out of 10, especially when it's really, really bad, everything that they understand is an abstract. Everything comes to them through a voice in their head or through imagery or through hallucinations. So they are having messages imparted to them, but most of the time it's abstract. It's not fucking literal. It's not literal like, a paranoid schizophrenic. Let's just compare and contrast, right? Somebody without paranoid schizophrenia that knows about government corruption would give you a comprehensive list of all the weapons that have been used, of victims that have been through the same thing, all that type of stuff. A paranoid schizophrenic person talking about the same thing would be rocking back and forth, usually spouting vague things, not making much sense, but like getting at least one piece of information right. So it's like me talking about, I don't know, the fact that BAE Systems has had a conservative government official becoming a director. That's coming from me, right? A paranoid schizophrenic would be like, they're firing weapons, or somebody in their head would be talking about them firing weapons, or they'd have hallucinations where the weapons become something else, or angels talking to them about the weaponry, like stuff like that. And the fact that TIs are being diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic, when most of us are not violent, most of us are not suicidal either, not even in the midst of this crap. What does that do to a person? And especially, what does that do to a person who has borderline personality disorder because of the torture they've suffered? You literally have borderline personality disorder in a situation that's designed to put you, to give you that illness in the first place. What does that do to you? And you know it's fucking borderline stalking me. You know I got borderline stalking me. There's no way I don't. With this obsessive bullshit. You know I got borderlines fucking taunting me and fucking doing all kinds of shit. It's borderlines, man. Borderlines are obsessive. Narcissism and sociopathy is a different thing. That's about having superiority over someone else. But borderline personality disorder is a lack of emotional regulation. And then addicts, lack of regulation, but I think that's more hormonal because of the effect that addiction does to their body. So yeah, like just that one thing, obsession, it just sent my mind reeling with questions. It also made me think about how I've been treated and how I've treated others. Like I said before, I take responsibility for how I treat people, illness or no illness. Your illness doesn't have to define you, and it doesn't have to define the way you behave. I take responsibility for what I do. That's on me. And nobody has the obligation to stick around if I'm mistreating them. Nobody is obligated to stick around for me if I'm mistreating them. That nobody is obligated to do that, and nobody is obligated to accept me if I'm treating people like shit. Nobody. But then again, it made me realize, looking back through the way I was treated because of my mental illness, it made me realize that, yeah, even though my mental illness doesn't justify treating people like crap, then people's ignorance about how mental health works justify their treatment even less. And truth be told, the way people dealt with my mental illness is just evil. And the truth of the matter is that I can't, I can't be around people who treat mental illness like that, because there's something fundamentally and morally wrong with those people. Now, I'm not the most moral person in the world, and I'm not the most ethical person in the world, but at least try to be fair. I can't be around people who, who wear their ignorance like a badge of honor in order to fit in, and then want to ruin people's lives off the back of that. Those are not the type of people I want to be around. They're not the type of people I want in my space. They're not the type of people I want in my space. Ignorance of mental illness, it justifies nothing. Treat people how they treat you, and let that be that. Your treatment of people who are mentally ill, it justifies nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. The only thing that might justify the mistreatment of mentally ill people is if they do something evil. But even then, that's not going to be because of their mental illness. It's going to be because of their lack of handling of their illnesses. You want to judge us for doing something evil off our own back? Go ahead and do it. But if people are judging me for the illness itself, I can't rock with that. I can't rock with that. Because to me, that's weak. I don't fuck with weak people. I don't fuck with weak people. I don't do weak. I don't do weak. Although I do have some weak ways in me that I have to kind of iron out. But no, I don't do weak people. To me, that's the height of weakness. You're letting your ignorance speak for you, and you're allowing that ignorance to make you do irrational and evil things. I don't fuck with you. If I'm not making excuses, using my mental illness to hide behind, I'm not about to allow that for anyone else. You stay where you are, I'll stay where I am. And the only time when you mean a damn to me is when I'm getting my money. And that's the way it's going to be. That is the way it is going to be, because there is no other reason why I would ever fuck with people who will dehumanize me over my mental illness. No other reason. I've got money to make, and that's it. That's all you get out of me. That's all you get out of me. And I know it sounds like ruthless and self-serving, and it is self-serving. I make no bones about it. I'm cool with that. But, as long as you're letting your ignorance about mental health make you unkind and make you the type of person that will bring evil into people's lives based on what they do to themselves and not what they do to other people, you mean just one thing to me. Show me the fucking money. Show me the fucking money. That is all you mean to me. And that's all you're ever going to mean to me. Give me some money or get the fuck out of my life. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, that was my video on BPD and the TI community and all that type of stuff. Like, it was just that one word. That one word. Like, my mind was just like... But anyway, listen, I gotta go. You guys take care. I love you. Bye-bye.